Turn and talk. 2 words that can either launch a great discussion or produce 30 seconds of awkward silence and one student doing all the talking. Today, I want to show you one small addition that changes everything about how discussions work in your classroom. Welcome to the Secondary Teacher Podcast, the podcast for middle and high school teachers juggling multiple preps to get the strategies to reduce overwhelm so that you don't have to choose between being an effective teacher and prioritizing important relationships. I'm your host, Kristen Masick, a 10-year high school engineering teacher, former middle school assistant principal, and teacher coach. Every week, we will discuss strategies, systems, and time-saving tips to help you not only survive but thrive as a multiple prep teacher. Last episode, we talked about what makes a first week activity worth repeating and why the best classroom culture builders aren't one-time icebreakers, but structures students can return to all year long. Today, we're getting specific because one of the most reusable structures in any classroom is a good discussion routine. And I want to walk you through the one I keep coming back to and why it works better than anything else I've tried. For years, I used Think, Pair, Share, or at least I thought I was using Think, Pair, Share. What I was actually doing was saying, okay, find your elbow partner and discuss, and then hoping something good happened. Sometimes it did. Sometimes one student carried the whole conversation while the other nodded. Sometimes both students just looked at each other. And I'd watch that happen and think discussions just don't work with this group. But here's what I've come to understand, especially after spending time recently trying to better support multilingual learners in the classroom. The problem wasn't the students. The problem was that I had skipped a step. Because when you ask a student to speak before they've had time to think, and especially before they've had time to write anything down, you're asking them to generate ideas and perform simultaneously. That's a lot. For a multilingual learner, that moment can feel completely overwhelming. Not because they don't have ideas, but because language processing required to formulate a thought and speak it out loud at the same time is genuinely hard, especially when someone is sitting across from them waiting. But here's what I noticed when I started adding the right step. It wasn't just multilingual learners who benefited, it was everyone. Quieter students who needed more processing time, students who have ideas but lose them the moment they've been put on the spot. When students have something written down before they turn to their partner, they're not trying to think of something to say. They already have something to say, and that changes the entire conversation. I think sometimes we treat discussion as a student skill. Either they can do it or they can't, but discussion is actually a classroom routine. Just like we teach students how to enter the room, how students use materials, how to submit work, we also need to teach them how conversations work in our classroom, because classroom culture isn't built by telling students to talk. It's built by teaching them how to think together. And a clear structure is what makes that possible, especially for students who need it the most. So here's the structure I keep coming back to. Think. Students read or hear the prompt and take a moment to process it quietly. No pressure to produce anything yet. Just thinking. Write. Students write a response, even one sentence, even a few words. The goal is simply to have something on paper before the conversation starts. This is the step that changes everything, because now when students turn to their partner, they're not starting from zero. They have a thought formulated. They have something to point to. If language is hard, they can literally show their partner what they wrote. That's accessible in a way that just discuss never is. Pair. Students share with a partner. And because both students have something written down, the conversation is more balanced. One person isn't carrying it while the other scrambles to catch up. Share. A few partnerships share with the whole group. Simple, repeatable, and it works across every subject and every grade level. So you might be wondering, what makes a good prompt? The structure matters, but so does the prompt itself. Some prompts end the conversation before it starts. What did you do this summer? Students answer, done. But prompts that invite students to explain, reflect, or compare experiences create much richer conversations. Things like, a class feels easier for me when something a teacher does that really helps me is, one thing I want this class to feel like is, these aren't just icebreakers. They're helping you learn how your students think, and they're helping students learn something meaningful about the people sitting around them. That's where community actually starts, not from introductions, but from shared thinking. Here's the small addition that makes a big difference. After students pair and share, ask them to write down one thing they learned from their partner. It's such a small step, but now students have a reason to actually listen during the prayer conversation, not just wait for their turn to speak. That one addition quietly teaches one of the most important classroom skills there is, listening to understand, not just listening to respond. Here's where I think a lot of teachers unintentionally make more work for themselves. They find a great discussion activity, use it once during the first week, and never touch it again. Instead, think of think, write, pair, share as a reusable structure. Keep the routine the same. Change the prompt. Week 1, getting to know each other. Week 3, reflecting on how students learn. Week 6, connecting it directly to your content. Students already know the routine. Now, all they're thinking about is the question. That's exactly why I included a blank editable template in the resource. So once students know the structure, you can swap in your own prompts all year long without teaching a new activity every time. I used Think, Pair, Share for years before I understood what was actually making it hard for some students. It wasn't the pairing, it wasn't the sharing, it was the gap between think and speak, a gap I had never filled with anything. The right step fills that gap. And the students who benefit the most from it, the ones who need more processing time, the ones for whom language is harder, the ones who have great ideas but lose them the moment they're put on the spot, those are exactly the students who deserve to be part of the conversation, not accommodated out of it. That one small addition doesn't just improve discussions, it changes who gets to participate in them. Next episode, we're talking about something that comes up constantly in back to school planning. How do you actually introduce yourself and your classroom in a way that sets the right tone without spending the entire first day going over a syllabus that students won't remember anyway? That one's coming up next. If you'd like a ready-to-use version of this activity, I've linked my Think, Write, Pair, Share discussion prompts in the show notes. It includes themed prompts for getting to know students, learning preferences, and classroom expectations, plus a blank template so you can create your own questions throughout the year. It also includes different implementation options depending on whether you want students rotating partners, staying with one, or using it as a quick discussion warm-up. And if you're looking for even more classroom systems like this, it's included inside the Secondary Teacher Systems Toolkit, along with 8 other ready-to-use resources designed to help your classroom run more smoothly from the very beginning of the year. Before you go, one question. Are your students struggling with conversation, or have they simply never been taught a conversation routine? Sometimes one small structure and one extra step can change the way an entire classroom communicates. Finish something that makes tomorrow lighter. I'll see you next time.